Terry, finally some good, solid common sense from AGL. We've got Liddell closing next year. Yallourn's now shutting in Victoria earlier than anticipated, but has a horse already bolted?
I think it has, Peter. I mean, the words might sound great, but AGL hasn't exactly been up front there with, I have to say, an earlier chief executive, not this one, but the same board of directors. They committed to closing Liddell. They came out with a phony package of proposals to supposedly replace what is reliable power, even from an old, ageing power station like Liddell, with all the maintenance problems it has. But the bottom line reality is becoming even more stark, Peter, that if we get rid of our coal-fired power stations, and we're getting rid of them, getting rid of them not only by direct means, but because the subsidies we give to renewable energy, which give them first place in the queue when power is available, when the wind does blow and the sun does shine, the coal-fired power stations are being crippled in operational terms, and they are uneconomic because we are we're sleepwalking into this future, and that future is getting very, very close. We are going to have a future where we will have power brownouts and power blackouts unless we embrace coal-fired power stations, new ones, second best gas-fired power stations, and longer-term nuclear.
Peter, I look at this from a national security perspective too. Right at the time where things are getting tougher, not easier with China, we're shipping all of our natural resources to China to power their economy and make them more secure. And we're impoverishing ourselves in an energy sense here in Australia at a time when we can't be more vulnerable than we are now.
Yeah, what worries me, Peter, is that all of this is being driven by where we can see the modern-day consumer, the modern-day voter, where they're going. They really want to believe in climate change, and President Joe Biden is going to lead a chorus of people who are going to support this. And I think the old world is just going to have to accept change is in the wings. But if they don't actually do this sensibly, if they really believe that they can just shut down coal-fired power stations and then create enough energy to make economies work, I think there's going to be a real shock to the system. And I think it's going to be trial and error. And I think Terry's right. There's going to be power outages, and a lot of people who believe in the principle of doing things differently to improve climate change are going to be really sorry that they're committed to it.
Yeah, but just on that point on the politics of climate change, I think once people understand the reality of the choice, that it isn't just ticking a box and kumbaya and feeling good about the planet, that it actually has consequences for them. I've been there when governments have won elections based on people absolutely understanding what a carbon price would do to their standard of living and their job, and they voted otherwise. They're not against the environment, they absolutely are, but they're not being told the truth. And we've got this case, Terry, in Victoria, one of the big councils. I mean, this is extraordinary. the Yarra Council, which is on the outskirts of inner city Melbourne, they are going to ban heaters that are run on gas and cooktops that are run on gas. They're calling it all about a climate emergency response. They call gas dirty gas. And they want this to come out almost immediately so that they can meet this artificial council-based target for 2030. Not a national target, not an international, but a council-based target. And this is extraordinary, Terry. It's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary, Peter. But really, the councils, the Green-dominated inner-city councils, Yarra is the obvious, most striking example of that, are really only doing what the state Labor government wants them to do, because the state Labor government doesn't want to have gas-fired, gas providing power or heating or light cooking to Victorians. They won't allow Victorians to find gas anywhere in the state, whether it's onshore, offshore, fracking, or the old style gas fields. So I mean, this is the insanity we've drifted into, and there really isn't a choice. It's not like we can say, okay, we can take the hard decisions, we can do without real reliable power, and we'll save the climate, because nothing Australia does is going to make the slightest difference to the climate, whether or not you believe in climate change. As we know, the only country that matters is China, And China is saying, thank you very much. We'll take your iron ore. We'll take your coal. We'll continue to pump out CO2. And if you want to be stupid about it, be our guest.
Yeah, and make it all easy for us to take you over Australia in a few years' time. I tell you, let's talk about this ABS data out today if we can. This is migration numbers, internal Australian migration from state to state or capital cities out to regional areas. 43,000 of us moved out of capital cities into regional areas over the last year, more than double the number that have moved the year before. And in Melbourne in particular, they're leaving in droves. Greater Melbourne had the highest exodus in history. 26,000 people left Melbourne. I think that is still continuing. It's not just a factor of last year. No one's surprised by this, are they, Peter?
No. When you have lockdown failures of the magnitude that Daniel Andrews commented over, you can understand why it's happened. And by the way, in the recession of 1990, Melbourne had the biggest exodus from the city to the regional areas, and particularly, of course, the Gold Coast, where most Melburnians go when they're sick of the weather in Melbourne. But I think what we're seeing is a lot of people are going for sea change and tree change anyway. And so that's been sped up. Like people in their 50s who might not have actually made the move in the 60s, because, employers are being far more relaxed about people working from home. I think there's been a speeding up of this shift. I don't think it will last forever, but I think we'll probably see it for the next year or two.
Yeah, I think you're right. Terry, in Victoria, poor old taxpayers, she said, on the hook, they're paying bonuses to public servants who are refusing to go into the office. They stay at home, they get their working from home bonus, but they've been told to go back to work. 43% of them, according to the Herald Sun, say, no, sorry, Dan, we're not going back into the office. We will stay home. Now, I know that there were psychiatrists being used by some businesses to try and coax workers back into the office, but this is taxpayers' money out the back door.
Well, exactly, Peter. We saw last year that there were really two virus pandemic realities. One was in the private sector where you lost your job. You had your business mandatorily closed down through the lockdown periods, and Victoria did it twice compared to the rest of the country. We had it 6 months, really battering private workers, private employers, and the public sector sailed on serenely. They were working from home. They not only were not suffering any penalty, they were getting paid living at home allowances as well. And now we see this is continuing in 2021 in the supposed time when we're all supposed to be equal. We're all supposed to be on the same side of the fence. It's outrageous. It's unacceptable. The state government must order their employees back to work, just as private businesses are doing.
Or sack them and we'll save some money, but some are more equal than others, as George Orwell would say. Peter Switzer, Terry McCrann, as always, thank you for your time.
Cheers.